Chapter 3. Stuck in the Middle. There were very few things in this galaxy that took Wanda by surprise. She had seen her fair share of adventure throughout the years, spending a good portion of her younger life exploring the wonders of the galaxy. She remembered the first time she witnessed a black hole in space. Wanda would tell those who loved such stories that she would cruise their edges, whip around, and pull out of their gravitational force at the last second. The motion would send her speeding faster than light toward the far end of the galaxy. Of course, this was a slight exaggeration from what had really happened. The actual truth was she had spent so much time wandering around, she was almost sucked in by its phenomenal gravitational pull by not paying attention to where she was going. If it wasn't for the fact that a red star was being absorbed by the spinning monstrosity, sending its light energy into a swirling vortex of clouds and gas, she would have just been sucked in like so many bubbles down a draining bathtub. The whole experience overwhelmed her so much that to this day she could not even remember what she had been looking for at the time. So she played it cool and started telling everyone that she had done it on purpose to save some face among her peers. She loved telling people the stories of her youth, but when they started to ask her dates and times of the events, she struggled to place the exact numbers. It was as if they were all just smeared together throughout her life, like colours blended one by one across the board of time. Her eyes blinked, appeased by the wonderful feelings of reminiscence. Crash! The sound made Wanda jump from her sitting position in front of the emergency panel. She shot a quick glance over to the side, where a large piece of the ceiling had fallen next to her. "Holy crap!" she exclaimed, clutching her hand to her chest. She glanced up to see a head appear out of the sudden aperture above. "Sorry about that, ma'am," said the young technician. Wanda sighed, trying to get her insides under control. She peered around the mess that was the engine room of the End Run. There was a considerable amount of damage from its initial engagement with the enemy that they had encountered. It was hard to imagine what it would have looked like in its pristine condition before the battle. She had learned that Braum and his fighters went off to engage the enemy ships, which left the End Run defenceless to the enemy bomber attacks, which in turn led to the mass of destruction around her. All because of Ree. Wanda chuckled from the poor irony of it all. Now the captain and first mate were dead, leaving the whole crew under the care of one very surprised would-be captain. Wanda cast her sights to the technicians, who were busy trying to fix the ship before their departure to Space Station 9. They were all focusing on getting the engines back online. Most of them were young and inexperienced, but they still worked hard under the command of their new captain. Wanda turned back to the enclosure for a second, before shaking her head and sighing again. She closed the door to the fusion box and decided to go for a walk. It had been many years since she had seen a spaceship such as the End Run. She was most impressed by the modernization of its capabilities. It was a much different design than the standard Altarian model. Its sleek barrel shape was an interesting choice, being able to support many weapons and defensive abilities not commonly found on most other ships. The dark grey ships, from what Wanda could recall, were usually the prototypes used to carry experimental components to be tested in their pre-trialed stage. Most Altarian ships were either light grey or an off-white colour. The dark matted colouring gave the End Run an intimidating look. But it wasn't so much the look of the ship that appealed to Wanda. She had remembered learning about some of the technological theories and designs that had been implemented into this ship before leaving Altera years ago. The pulse engine was a promising feature, giving a large ship such as this one great speeds and abilities manoeuvring through space. The flux shield generator was a highly probable device which kept most energy fire away from the ship, although they didn't help much against the bombing attack. She wanted to see if she could fix and enhance the disabled device, but there was not enough time to do everything. So much of her attention was called to the repair of the critical stations throughout the ship. Wanda did not even have time to think about the greatest problem of them all. Devin. He was gone, disappeared as if sucked into a black hole himself. But Wanda knew it wasn't a black hole that took him away. Something or someone had deliberately snatched him from them, and that thought disturbed her more than anything. The lift doors opened as she approached. A few crew members filed out, heading toward the engine room. Wanda entered. Her fingers perused over the selection grid of where she wanted to go, which to her meant being anywhere else but here. Her crooked smile formed for a second. The officers' quarters were near the top. Kaya would either be there or on the bridge. She pressed the bridge button. She just had to see. It amazed Wanda to learn that Kaya ended up being the subordinate captain. It was just another bad case of her being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It wasn't as if she didn't think Kaya could be a good captain, but her battle experience was that of an Altarian snailfish. Nothing was worse to Wanda than being that which eventually gets bitten in the arse. The doors opened, revealing the bridge before her. Just as she stepped out, a loud ruckus began to heat up in the centre of the room.
"What do you mean we can't turn back?" yelled Brahm. "Altera needs us. We have to face off against this fleet. I don't care how damn many there are."
Kaya was holding her fingers to her face. It was apparent that this was not what she wanted to be doing right now. "Our orders were to rendezvous at Station 9 so we can form an offensive against the enemy," she aggressively replied, her voice rising in anger. "Don't you realise what's going on here?" Brahm began to fume his frustrations within his immediate surroundings. He reached out and grabbed a tool from one of the tech people next to him and hurled it across the bridge. "There's nothing we can do," reaffirmed Wanda. "Altera is gone." Brahm and Kaya both stared at her. Their confusion, mixed with the pain of her words, could not make them comprehend what she had said.
"What?" exclaimed Brahm. "What do you mean, gone?"
Wanda glared at him, her eyes telling him what she had seen. The brilliant greens of her corneas were laced with trepidations of fear. Brahm continued to stew amid his emotional tirade. He was a warrior, and now he could not even be that against what appeared to be insurmountable odds. "What did you see?" asked Kaya, trying to maintain some sort of composure. "More ships than you could shake a stick at," muttered Wanda. "There ain't any force in this galaxy that's going to stop them." Kaya's heart fell. Given their current predicament, this was something that she did not want to hear at the moment. There was enough running through her mind without any more needful worry. Instinct told her to take her frustrations out on the one who started it all. Her troubled thoughts were trying to tell her that if Devin had not come into their lives, none of this would have happened. It was so easy to blame everything on him since he had left, but her heart just would let her. She shook her head, hoping some form of sense would come to her distress. In truth, she began to realise, if he didn't appear, then none of them would have found out about the enemy. Altera would have died in vain, with no chance at redemption. Devin brought something to them that there would not have been otherwise. Hope. Hope for even the smallest chance that they would come out on top against such a phenomenal foe. "How much longer till we can take off?" Wanda stood and thought for a second. "At least a few more hours," she replied. "The engines should be back up soon. I would like, however, to go out in a shuttle and examine the spot where Devin disappeared. I'm curious about something." Kaya and Brahm watched her, their curiosity growing as well. "Check it for what?" asked Kaya. "We're going to be late as it is with these repairs." "I still have a printout of the last scan I did on Devin when he arrived," Wanda argued. "If I can get a match, it just might bring me one step closer to finding out who is truly behind all of this." "What are you saying?" asked Brahm. "That there's someone else out there pulling the strings." "That would be a fair assessment," replied Wanda. "But there is something else, something that's been bothering me lately. If we're getting help like he said we were, then someone must be moving against us as well," replied Kaya in shock.
Bingo, said Wanda. Brom was flustered. Okay, I've been cool about all of this so far, he stated, noticing Kaya's crazy look. But I need to know what's going on.
Wanda sighed at the big simpleton. Truthfully, she asked him.
Brom nodded, his brow creasing in frustration. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Great, replied Brom, feigning a smile. That's just great. Now what are we supposed to do?
Have you all forgotten about Devin? Reminded Wanda. He'll be back, and hopefully with some help.
At least he better, she thought wistfully. Brom began to laugh. Oh, yes, Wonder Boy, he bolstered, turning to stare down Kaya. What about him? Is that the kind of guy you like? Love you and leave you? Kaya's hand swept across his face. The painful smack echoed throughout the bridge as everyone turned to look. She glared hurtfully at Brom, daring him to say something else. Brom stood silent as traces of shock lined the rims of his eyes. Kaya flashed one final glance at Wanda before heading to the lift.
I'll be in my quarters, she huffed.
Brom touched his cheek. It was tinged with the red imprint of Kaya's hand.
Ow,
he said, more from the shock than the pain. You're still quite the charmer, prodded Wanda. I guess you're lucky she still likes you. That would have been pretty ugly if she didn't. She walked away from him as well, leaving Brom to ponder the validity of her words.